chapter clicked in to College Volleyball Weekly on Viral Volley Media. Now here's your host, Rob on mic.
Hey everyone, not a CVW episode, but instead the coaching panel of CVW wants to respond to the recent devastating news of the dropping of GCU's men's volleyball program. So got Jay Hossack of Georgia Mason, Brad Rothschild of UC San Diego, Dan Friend of Lewis. And we know this is a extremely high news week between all the NCAA men's tournament, the brackets, you got the beach tournament and their brackets, but this news dropped after the last match of Grand Canyon season in Malibu this last weekend. So whoever wants to take a start, feel free to jump in. I mean, I know you guys have a lot to say and I'd rather have it focused on you guys. So.
Well, I will start just by pointing to this. Do better, GCU admin. I know we're going to unpack a lot here, so I'll be brief with my opening statement. It is baffling to me that a program like Grand Canyon that was in the national semifinals last year and was ranked number 1 in the country for a short while, that they would be the ones on the chopping block in order to give more money to, let's be honest, to basketball. And I just, you're seeing it across the country, various programs, some universities are closing. Whether or not this has anything to do with it, I don't know, but you're seeing ADs chase the ring. And, as good as I think Grand Canyon is at basketball, are they really going to be a top contender for a national championship? And the answer is no. I mean, the days are gone of the mid-majors that can compete at the highest levels. The Gonzagas of the world, even Gonzaga is going to struggle trying to compete at this level. And I'm sad for all of the fans. I'm sad for all the guys that were on the team. I'm sad for the staff. Worley has been getting a lot of heat and he had nothing to do with this. He didn't know this was happening and he didn't leave early because he knew this was coming. To anybody that thinks that he did, you're out of your mind. I talked to him the day it came out and he's like, I didn't know anything like this was coming down the pike. So I'm just sad. That'll be my opening statement.
Yeah. I mean, it's heartbreaking for everyone directly affected, right? You have the players within the program, you have the alumni of the program, specifically you have the staff that's been leading the program through what was already a tough enough time. And between John and Brian, and quite frankly, we as a volleyball community are very lucky that John and Brian are there leading these guys through this, because as I reach out to them and as I, in my first message to John, his response had nothing to do with himself or throwing a pity party. It was purely about finding the best homes for those guys within the program because they deserve better than what happened to them on Monday. And that's a testament to the leaders that both those guys are as men and who they are and what is probably going to be the toughest situation they'll ever face in their career, or one of, to see them handle it that way and putting the kids first and foremost and trying to find each and every kid a new spot is a testament to them. So just from the volleyball community, our heart goes out to everyone. And we're so proud of how John and Brian and even Matt have been handling this through so much adversity.
Yeah.
It amazes me how many athletic departments can't seem to handle stuff in a better light. Look at St. Francis and how they dumped on their kids. We're going D3, but didn't tell any of the kids till right before they did it on social media. So you see us lose a D1 program there. You see Grand Canyon dump it on a post before they really communicate. And it's just like, I do better. Everybody do better. I get there's some money involved in, some things are shifting and the dynamic of, caring about academics in college have kind of flown out the window in some regards, but it's like, just treat people better in terms of how you're handling things. And, I don't think Worley knew. I don't think he had a clue what was going on, but we could all admit the fact that they wouldn't invest in a fantastic coach that had done some things there and spend money, you can see the writing on the wall that they weren't willing to invest money in the program. They didn't want to invest money in Matt. They were forcing him into a corner where it's like, hey, you got to go somewhere else to get the money that you probably deserve. And so they didn't want to invest money in the program there. So I'm not shocked in that sense. I'm shocked how it came out and that it happened, but I don't know. You got a bunch of great guys and a great program that's built over the past 20 years, and to see it kind of unfold like this for them, you feel for them, you feel for the community. And, I think these guys, the community's great. Well, these guys find good homes if need be. If they don't find a way to save it, I think they will. But the way it's gone down and the way it's been handled is another poor job by an athletic administration.
And I think that,
so
on that note, I mean, I'm hearing stories from people who were in the room and situations that happened, right? And I'm sure we all are. And what's so sad is for those Grand Canyon athletes and those incoming athletes to hear the way they heard. Some of them were still in finals. Some of them were moving out of their dorms. Some of them were heading back home. And they were told it was an optional meeting that wouldn't impact their future. So some of them weren't stressing too much about being in those meetings. And one of them was FaceTimed into the meeting by his teammate. And what I'm hearing is the coaches were told beforehand, immediately beforehand, not where they had any notice. They weren't able to contact anyone, and they were told not to contact anyone. And then that went right into the administrative meeting with the players. And within that meeting with admin and the players, the coaches weren't allowed in the room. And
interesting.
Yeah. And from there, they told the team. And then after that, administration left, and then the coaches were able to come into the room. And that's where they were able to at least be there for the guys and try to help support them and find new homes. So I think just in terms of how it was managed, then obviously you have the social media posts going up before the meetings even concluded, and before any of the incoming recruits can be contacted or told via phone or FaceTime or even email about what's happening. It's just gut-wrenching. And
isn't Grand Canyon a for-profit university?
Yeah.
And they have a very, very deep bank account. There is no, my understanding as of 10 years ago, when they started to make a push to go big time athletics, they had more money than God. They were on the online cutting edge, so to speak, back in the day before it was really a thing, and made absolute money hand over fist. So you're now stressing about a program that maybe, including scholarships, including budgets, including salaries for the staff, less than $1 million a year, easy. All of those things combined. I bet you it's probably in the 600 range, 700 range total. You're telling me that you're going to cut one of your more successful programs that was built from the ground up so that basketball can have another steak dinner. Like that's what it's coming down to. So you can buy another kid to come into your program that's going to just transfer out anyways, because Grand Canyon's not Kentucky. Grand Canyon's not, Duke. So that kid's going to do well. He's going to bounce after his first year anyways. This is just, this arms race for the NCAA basketball and football is becoming absolutely out of control. And, the NCAA better not talk about how this is all for the betterment of the student athlete, that they're there. It's a complete farce. It's a sham. They've been that way for a long time. And now everything's out in the open. Everything's got a bright light shined on it. And you all look like fools at the NCAA. It's awful what's going on.
Yeah.
Hey, what happens? Yeah, it's a random question. APR is like the graduation or like that whole rate. That just goes out the window from everybody, right? Because all the transfers left and right. I just
gone. As of next year, my understanding is that the APR will no longer be a factor because of everything going on with NIL and transfer portal and the whole 9 yards. What they're shifting to is more of a graduation rate, in which It's a continuation of you graduating players and keeping players eligible and things of that nature, but it's no longer going to be APR. And schools are still being held to APR. That's the thing. I mean, I'm one of them. We're, our compliance office wants to know that our APR is still intact, and there's still ramifications. If you're below a certain number in APR, you can't play in the postseason. And so
I've got to ask Jay, just because that's a new term for me, and I'm sure there are other people. What's an APR?
APR is academic progress rate. Am I correct, Brad? I believe
I actually don't know what it stands for, to be honest. I just know it's important to have a good score.
Yes, yes, academic progress rate. So basically what it does, your student athletes come into your school, and I'll give you a couple of examples. Your freshmen come in, they have to pass a certain number of units in their first year to remain eligible for the following year. It doesn't matter your first semester is whatever. You could fail every class and still be eligible in that spring semester because it's your first year. After that, there's a certain number of credits or units that you have to pass in order to be eligible to become for the next following year. So your APR is all of your student athletes combined, and there's certain numbers attached. The challenge is your perfect score is 1,000. And I know that I'm talking way above some people's heads here that are watching this. So don't nitpick this and try to get too much. And I'll boil it down to a thing in a second. The more athletes you have on your roster, the more athletes that are on scholarship. So if you have a very large roster, let's say you have 40 or 50 kids on your roster, maybe you're swimming, maybe you're track and field, and you've got a large number on scholarship. If you have a kid or two here and there that get dinged, that are not following the units, the passing the units have to be done, your program at that size doesn't take a very big hit, right? It's a very small percentage. But if you're, let's say, men's volleyball or golf for that matter, and you have a large number of guys on scholarship, having one guy not do very well can really screw you up. And you need to be, I think it's above 965 cumulative over 4 years in order to remain eligible for postseason play. But if you have one guy get dinged, that's 25 points or so right off the bat out of the gates if you're a small team. If you're a large team, it's 5 points or so. It's really not that big of a deal. So you could start to see if you're part of a school where academics maybe is not the main focus, and you bring in a couple of kids and they're behind the curve, so to speak, your program can take a big ding. Now, if you are a program that loses transfers like crazy, whatever, Dan, the joke being Dan is sending guys all over the place, but Dan doesn't have the APR, I believe, that we have. But regardless, it doesn't matter. If the kid re-enrolls in another institution, whether it's a 2-year, 4-year, doesn't matter, as long as they enroll in the following semester, meaning if you leave in the spring and in the fall you enroll, then it doesn't ding you till that because they're continuing their progress. They're moving on. But with kids going to play pro in basketball, with kids going to play in baseball, it's really common. They drop down to the division, to the JC level a lot. And a lot of them don't bounce out of there. I mean, it's a gnarly curve, some of these things. It's a really intricate deal. And the NCAA thought it was trying to do the right thing by trying to keep tabs on these kids. But in this new day and age, with the portal being the way it is, it's absolutely, it's nuts trying to keep up with it.
Yeah. So, Brad, and I think Dan, you mentioned, the guys are trying to find homes for them. And I mean, this has been like one day. And my most recent experience about this was when Pacific ended. And I remember being at the Brennan Event Center for Joe Wertman's last match. And, the brand was nice enough to let the Pacific alumni have a little reception and have I guess it was very somber party, so to speak, because it was the last time they're competing. And I know that they had found homes for some people. And I remember the call that Wertman made to NIF, and we ended up with Thomas Hodges and Marty Ross. But, that's a very rare circumstance because teams have already been established, the culture's been there, and then you're going to have the beef with the other guys that have already been there for a long time. So, but what does that look like potentially for these athletes that have come into, well, we'll say established roster or established program?
What gets really scary, and I actually even remember Cal Baptist was similar in terms of timing. I remember Cal Baptist, I think it was the first week in May, so like May 5th, May 7th, announced they were discontinuing their program, which really hurt a lot of incoming recruits because it was after the admissions deadline for a lot of universities. And then a lot of their players on the team didn't have places to go from there. But where this is going to get even trickier is the looming legislation with NCAA potential roster spot limitations is something that was never in effect before, right? And then especially even just the general use of the transfer portal. I don't even remember when Cal Baptist dropped their program if the portal was a thing.
Nope.
At that. So now we're adding in, there's a lot of other people looking for new homes. Then you have this entire program looking for new homes. And then you have coaches who are figuring out, how do I get my roster to 18, or how do I maintain a roster at this 18 limit? Or what am I going to do with these additional one or two people who are looking for homes that might be able to help our program? There is a lot of unknown for a lot of these athletes in the portal. And then especially for these Grand Canyon athletes that are looking to continue their volleyball careers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The 25 and 26 classes right now are really, the 25 class for that matter. Some coaches might look at a guy like Travell Jordan, one of the best middle blockers in the country for his age. There's a lot of coaches out there that would like that kid, or they're maybe looking at some of their recruits going 6'10" middle blocker versus a 6'5" middle blocker with very little experience. And all of a sudden they start to do a little bit of math. I mean, there's going to be some kids that are going to be really, really bummed. And we don't know. I mean, the thing that came over the pike when we were up at the EIVAs is that the judge sent back the final decision and said, I want to phase in or phase out, however you want to say it, the current student athletes. And we all got excited again, because remember last week, I was like, you got to be kidding me. This is awful. So she sent it back and she said, you got to add this thing in there. But now I'm hearing that the NCAA lawyers are saying it's a non-negotiable. So Brad's right. It's still up in the air. We don't know where it's going to go.
Dang, hot mess.
I think Brad was spot on. I think there's a guy like Travell. Here's the thing. I'm not saying Brad would do this on his program, but whoever's at 18, they see a player like Travell, they may cut a guy that's on their team to get a guy like Travell. Or Trent Mosier. Yeah. Somebody may cut a guy on their team because, hey, I can go get Trent Mosier. I think that the 2 or 3 top guys on that program, I think they're going to find homes. You know what I mean? I think the tough part is probably the middle layer of guys, or even maybe the bottom guys. Those are going to get a little bit more challenging for some of those guys because of the roster limits and recruiting classes being done and kind of where they're at.
Well, I'm thinking about their incoming freshmen. They've got 6, 7 guys coming in next year as freshmen. Some of them are really high level. Those guys now have nowhere to go. They're not trying to bounce everywhere else. It's crazy.
And for context for the listeners, the player referenced here, Travell, was all MPSF honorable mention, all MPSF freshman team. So someone who has some player experience.
All right. Sighting, race sighting. We got to have her on the real episode. Speak for Dan.
Be more entertaining that way.
Give her a fake beard.
We have a Dan Friend episode.
But yeah, to go back to it, I mean, there's so many kids and people that are impacted by this, and Dan's 100% right. You look at some of those kids that are coming out of there, and there's some coaches that are going to make some really uncomfortable decisions, and that's going to affect even more people. And everybody goes, oh, well, it's great. D2 and D3, they're going to see all these kids that come down. You might see a lot of kids just get out completely.
Yeah. Well, I mentioned this because I've received some direct messages from parents of incoming signees Is this true? I'm like, yeah, pretty true. And quickly, what are we supposed to do? This has left a handful of people without any kind of direction who have never been involved in this process. Incoming freshman recruits or signees. So what happens to them?
Well, I think some advice for that would be, if you're an incoming guy that signed with them, you have to get a release. It's part of the process, like just to cover your, hey, I'm released to talk to whoever. Do you know what I mean? So, they should already be getting it, though. They should be being communicated from the administration. Do you know what I mean? But I think I'd have their high school coaches or their club contacts, kind of start opening those doors, which I think, I don't know, I've already been in contact with a couple. Do you know what I mean? So it's just like, I think just opening those doors as you can. I think coaches are aware of what's going on. And I know it sucks, but I think the coaches that you're going to reach out to are aware of it as well. Do you know what I mean? And there's going to find some homes, hopefully, for a lot of those kids are talented. It just may not be the exact pathway, but things happen for a reason. I don't mean that like it sucks, but like maybe the pathway that's chosen for you next it will be fantastic. Do you know what I mean in terms of that? So I just you can't control much of it. So
this is one of those moments where I'm sure most coaches use this in some form or fashion or wording. Life is, 10% what happens to you and 90% what you do with it. And, nobody wants to lose a job. Nobody wants to lose a program. Nobody wants to lose a position on a team. Nobody wants to lose their coach. Nobody does. It's just the way it is. But now what are you going to do? Because, life sucks sometimes. Life is fucking hard. And pardon my French, but it's hard. And this is a hard moment. And, those guys that are being proactive, the coaches, John and Brian, being proactive and trying to help, like they're looking at it and going, all right, that happened. It happened. It sucks. And I'm sure there's some movement to try to get it brought back, but let's just act like it's not. They're being proactive now. They're trying to take that role of that 90% of, all right, I'm going to do the best I can to make the best of this situation because it's not fun and it sucks.
Yeah. Well, is there anything else on that? Because I wanted to move over to something else. And yeah, I said in another recording, I'm not quite sure I'm going to put this together with the panel, but I've never done this for anyone. And I feel like I need to this time. But when a friend whom I know is a good person gets mud slung at them, I'm going to defend them. And people have made assertions that Matt Worley knew, and that's why he took the position at Kansas. And I know how tight all you guys are with Matt. And I mean, at Fairfax, when they were in the 8 for the NCAAs, got to hang out quite a bit with them. And then, of course, they were back here in Long Beach last year. But over the years, when he's in the MIVA as a head coach against Dan, and they moved over to the MPSF, I mean, I've seen nothing but high character things. And this is something I was hoping you guys could shed light on, because you're aware of the situation and you've spoke to him in some cases already. But I wanted you guys to share, because people were saying that's why he bailed. So I wanted
those people that are saying stuff are short-sighted, emotional, and don't know what they're talking about. Okay. Matt's a class act. He's been great for that program. He was super supportive. Some people think I don't even like the guy. The guy, he's great. You know what I mean? And so, like, but
well,
I'll tell you
the
this:
best looking coach in the MIVA while he was there. That's why. I mean,
I'm still the best looking coach. That guy, even on the women's side. You know what I mean? And so, like, but Matt's fantastic. Like, those people that are saying that stuff don't have a clue what's going on. And so, I think, he worked hard to put that program where it was at from that standpoint. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I couldn't echo that anymore. Here's the thing I hope people take into consideration. Matt was not paid a lot of money to be that coach at Grand Canyon. I know everybody thinks that it's a ton of money. He's not making a ton of money. He has a young family. He's got a couple of kids, that are barely, out of diapers, and he's got a wife. And at some point, you as a husband or father, however you want to look at it, has to go, hey, I've got to provide for my family. Hey, Grand Canyon, you think maybe you can give me a raise? I did a pretty good thing this year. I made it to the national semifinals. We were ranked #1 in the country. You think maybe you want to kick in a little bit more and maybe make my life a little easier? And they said no. They said no. They didn't say no because we're cutting the program. They just said no. So like any good father, any good husband, any good partner would do, they reassessed and thought, can we live on this and with more and more, our family expanding? Or do I need to look somewhere else to maybe continue my career and make more money for the family so we can live? And you know what? He did a pretty good job. He found a place where he's going to get paid a little bit more money and he's got more opportunities in the future. It's a good program with a good staff. And God forbid he stay at Grand Canyon with that family, because now he'd be without a job, period. So kudos to you, Matt, for taking a chance, right? Because you go into the unknown, as we all like to call it, the dark side. You know, you took a chance and it panned out, and it's going to pay off for you in the future. But he didn't know it. You really think that he would leave Grand Canyon and not tell anybody, hey, this is coming down the pike. I got out early. You better get out now. He didn't know anything. So all you people slinging money at him, shut up. Shut up.
Yeah, and you can just look at his relationship with John and Brian.
Yeah.
They're some of his closest friends, and he knew the program would be just fine with them taking over, them filling up and stepping up and filling his void. And just like, as someone who is a friend of Matt's, that's not how he would treat any of his friends. As someone who's seen him interact with alumni from Grand Canyon, that's not how he would treat any of those alumni. It's just not in his nature. It's not in his character. And I think all of us who know him are more than aware of that. And we got nothing but love and respect for Matt, his family, and for what he did at Grand Canyon. And I don't think this decision from yesterday or from Monday, depending on when we post this, had anything to do with anything Matt's done or any decisions Matt's made, right? It just is very terrible and unfortunate timing that it all went down this way.
Yeah. Well, and this is the side that people don't get to see, is the coaches fraternity on the men's side. And I mentioned in the other piece, but for the most part, most of you are hanging out, having a good time, and hanging along. It's like you guys are part of each other's lives. And, knowing the family situation for Matt, people don't realize that good friends with Matt Ulmer and Erica Dillard and Jason Dillard, and they're all in the same season of life with little ones. And he's getting more money and a bigger home. You'd be dumb not to take that.
And his wife played for Matt Ulmer back in Long Beach State. Like, there's a connection there. It's a great fit. So kudos to Matt for taking a chance and moving on, and poor John and Brian. Like, one of those two guys had to have been in line for the job when it would officially open right now. And you gotta think that they're going to be the front runner for that job, because they were part of this thing for the last number of years. What a bummer. What if one of them started a family and started thinking about getting a house and started thinking about planting roots, and now all of a sudden there's nowhere for them to go? That sucks.
Yeah. Well, we terrible news, and we're going to keep you guys up on it. Again, this is go ahead.
I think lastly, like, where this hurts the most as a coach who's seen so much growth in the state of Arizona and youth and club volleyball, is like, the club scene out there has absolutely blown up with the success of Grand Canyon, and a large part to Matt's leadership out there and coaching out there. And now you have clubs like Arizona Fear, Aspire, that those kids, a lot of them were fed right into GCU. And now those guys, they're still going to have some options, but they don't have an NCAA program to turn to in Arizona. And for USA Volleyball and AAU Volleyball and all of that stuff, for the state of Arizona to lose that volleyball community of Grand Canyon leading the way, and really kind of probably leaving a really bitter taste in a lot of the youth Arizona volleyball players' mouth, is really sad. And for boys volleyball as a whole, it breaks our hearts, all those players' hearts, but a lot of future kids who wanted to go to Grand Canyon and wanted to play and and set like Nick Slide and attack like Camden Gianni. Now that's lost and gone, and that's really sad.
Yeah. Well, unless there's anything else, I wanted to draw some attention to some of the resources that are out there. Anything else, gentlemen? We good? So I want to add that former Grand Canyon middle blocker Cameron Thorne started a GoFundMe to help with the current athletes because he's still in really good terms. They're all good friends over there. Be sure to check that out. I mean, don't know where that's going to go as far as like the program, but these guys are going to be in need of support. And then the other piece is former assistant coach Matt August on his Instagram has a petition that he started at Coach Matt August. Be sure to check that out as well. And I don't know if you guys saw it, but Jamie Gordon of the AVCA put out a really good statement today, and there's a petition going there. And fortunately, I didn't get to get the link and read through it, but I saw it and I tapped in. And if you can go in there and sign that petition as well, we need we need to rally everyone that we can behind this. So,
this is not the last one, sadly.
Yeah, and the reality of it is there are others. I mean, we saw St. Francis, and then no one. I mean, yeah, it was on people's radars, but I think especially with how well Grand Canyon had been these last few seasons, and the rise to volleyball power, they were a powerhouse. This is a shock to everyone. So with that, we'll get this posted quickly. Jay Hossick, George Mason, Brad Rostratter, UC San Diego, Dan Friend of Lewis. Official episode will be recording next week after the first round match, and we'll talk and be somewhat of our cheery and chippy selves. That's what we're going to call it, cheery and chippy. So thanks, gentlemen.
Thanks for listening to College Volleyball Weekly. Be sure to follow Rob Aspero at the Rob on the Mic on Instagram and at Rob on the Mic on Twitter.